I bet I know what came to your mind when you read the speech title. Honestly, say yes if it was Beyonce's anthem, Who Run the World. Was it? Awesome. Now, I don't know about you, but every time I read the name of this song, I want to just get it out of my system. I want to sing it. Will you join me tonight? Wonderful. So, what I'll do is I'll sing the main line and you give me the chorus. Ready? Awesome. Who runs the world? Who runs the world? Who runs the world? Amazing. Thank you for starting this evening on such an energetic note. But let's be real. Running the world is not about girls or women. It is about all of us. And despite this empowering message by Queen Beyonce, it breaks my heart to say that 50% of the people sitting here, the girls and women, very soon, if you haven't already, will have to work for free, will face a severe penalty at work, and will be blamed for choosing not to have kids. Sounds harsh? Unfortunately, if the work done by Nobel Prize-winning economist Claudia Golden is to be believed, all the research and trends point in this direction. Now, all is not doom and gloom. I'm not here to give you a sob story, because I think there can be a really elegant solution to this problem if we want to find it. And I have a solution. I call it SUPS, or Socially Useful Points System. By the way, that little coin you see on the top has been created by my daughter. But we'll come to that pretty soon. Before we get to that, let's talk about the 3 challenges first. Let's talk about working for free. Let's start at home, where women are expected to work for free, or more commonly understood as unpaid labor. That's my family. That's my mom, that's my dad, and that little girl in the middle is me. Now, my dad's a doctor and a pretty hands-on father. And my mom, let me see. She is a trained lawyer. She is a pathologist. She is an actor and director, and also a social worker. Now, I remember I was in 8th standard when my school gave me a form to fill out, which had a section about my parents' professions. And I came back home and wrote down doctor for my dad without thinking. And then I went to my mom. I was like, Mom, what do I write for you? She thought for a few seconds and said, just write housewife. And I never questioned it, because all that I had seen was that over the years, she was the one who woke up first in the morning, who made breakfast for us, who got us ready in the morning, who was there at home when we got back home from schools, who had snacks ready, made the dinner, did all the laundry, remembered everybody's birthdays and medicines and everything in between. So I never really questioned this tag of just a housewife that she gave her. And I'm quite ashamed to say that it took me years to realize that a major chunk of household labor, all this unpaid labor, falls on the shoulders of women. Now, if you think this is a problem in India or in developing nations, I want you to think again. This cartoon by the Dutch artist Bas van der Schot sums it up beautifully. Netherlands, which prides itself on its family-friendly policies, has a whopping 63% of women working part-time professionally, according to Eurostat. And why? Because women are expected to carry the burden of caregiving, taking care of the kids, taking care of the elderly, household chores, and everything else. And these women who work part-time are called part-time princesses. Quite ironic, right? Because 1, there is nothing princessy about it. And 2, they're only paid for part-time, while they continue to work overtime, day after day after day. Now, you might have seen greeting cards with quotes like, God couldn't be everywhere, so he made mothers. And yet, ask anyone who has a stay-at-home partner or stay-at-home mother, so where does she work? And pat comes the reply, oh, she doesn't work. She's a stay-at-home mom. I wish there was a way that the household chores or the unpaid labor wasn't the burden of somebody's gender to carry, but was voluntarily done by everyone in the society. Or there was a way to attach value to unpaid labor so that it could be included in the economic systems and the accounting systems of every country. But that world is not a reality right now. Let's take a look at the second challenge we talked about. Oh, by the way, this cartoon by UN Women sums it up beautifully, the painful reality of housewives who don't work. And I thought I'll share it with you all today as well. Moving on from the unpaid labor challenge, the second one is where women face a severe penalty. Let's zoom out of our little households and look at the workplaces everywhere, where women face a penalty for being mothers. It's very commonly called the motherhood penalty. Women, according to New York Times newspaper research, as soon as they have kids, they see a dip in their earnings, 4% dip in their earnings for every child that they have. And these are US statistics. I don't have to tell you that the numbers are much bigger in developing countries. For my childhood best friend, for example, the number was much higher. And she is a software engineer, for God's sake, a woman in STEM. This motherhood penalty doesn't just hurt women and their careers. It costs global economies billions of dollars every year in lost potential, productivity, and creativity. Now, wouldn't it be amazing if we had a reality where motherhood wasn't the source of a penalty, but additional perks? That's not what's happening right now. Imagine a woman working in corporate setting where she starts right next to her male counterpart. But as soon as she has a kid, she's subtly sidelined in her workplace, where she is overlooked for promotions or for those meaty, shiny, big roles. As her male counterpart continues to grow in his career, the woman, every time she travels for work, she's casually asked, "So who's taking care of the baby?" I know, because I've been asked that question dozens of times. And so has every professionally working woman that I know. Let's talk about the third challenge, the challenge of being blamed for not having kids, or what you'll recognize as a declining birth rate, which is a global challenge these days. In 1990, the average number of kids per woman used to be 3.2. By the time we got to 2020, this number came down to 2.4 kids per woman. And in some countries, like Japan and Korea, the number is lower than 1.3. Now, to a naive observer, it's easy to assume that the numbers are going down because women are prioritizing their careers over having kids and raising the next generation. But if you look closely, you'll realize that the problem is much deeper. Couples and women are deciding not to have many kids because of the rising cost of living, because of the competition for education, because of the housing crisis all over the world, and because just how bloody expensive it is to raise kids these days. And all these things, the rising cost of living, education competition, housing crisis, is driven by political decisions. These political decisions, which are taken by country leaderships, which still severely lack women. Now, this declining birth rate was a huge problem, and it still is. So when I looked at all these three problems together and thought to myself, what could be the solution? I started researching. And I saw that some countries like Sweden and Switzerland have some trial programs with their aging population, which could be a great starting point. So I went back to the Indian philosophy and found my answer in this Sanskrit shlok. It says, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which translates to, the world is one family. And I think it's time that we use this philosophy for humanity's own accountability. So based on this, the solution I'm going to share with all of you, the big idea tonight for me, is SUPs. Remember the one I showed you in the beginning with the sketch made by my daughter? Socially useful points system is my solution. Now think of it like airline miles. But instead of getting points for taking flights, you get points for doing socially useful work. Work like raising the next generation, volunteering, or helping with environmental sustainability. Let's listen to a story to see how it will look in the real world. Alex and Maya. As soon as they reach their 13th birthday, they get a SUP ID from the government. Now, Alex loves kids, and he starts helping the neighboring couple babysit for their kids every Wednesday evening because he has spare time. While Maya decides to start going to the elder care facility in the local neighborhood and helps the grandmas and grandpas there make sense of the latest in technology. Now, as soon as these grandmas and grandpas and the neighborhood couple approves these hours, Alex and Maya automatically see these SUPs stacking up in their government-backed software platform. As Alex and Maya grow, they continue to collect SUPs. Alex takes on a full-time job, gets married, and moves to a big city. He doesn't stop collecting SUPs. Every Sunday, he has a couple of hours spare, so he helps with the neighborhood cleanliness drive. When he and his partner have a kid, and she starts going to high school, both of them decide to use some of their SUPs to subsidize some of her education. It works out beautifully. In case of Maya, she decides to stay single and start her own business. Now her business takes 100% of her time. So she doesn't have time to volunteer or do anything else. So she keeps her SUPs in her account. Till one day, when her business hits a rough patch and she decides to use some of these SUPs for tax break, which also works great in her case. As Alex and Maya keep growing old, they don't forget about SUPs. Even after retirement, they still work at the local orphanage. An orphanage, by the way, which has very few kids these days. Because guess what? Raising kids and adopting them has major SUP benefits. In this world, kids get multi-generational love and learning, not just from their parents, but from their uncles, aunts, neighbors, friends. And these families gain the villages that are so crucial for bringing up kids. Now I know this idea of SUPs is much bigger than just unpaid labor or motherhood penalty. But remember that Sanskrit shlok, Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam? I think all these things, because the world is one big family, everything is connected. Whether it's motherhood penalty, whether it's unpaid labor, whether it's aging population or environmental crisis, all these things are connected. And unless we find a solution that works for everything, we won't be able to solve any of these problems in isolation. Now I'm aware that igniting such a big change like SUP is going to take advocacy, not just from me, but also from governments, from politicians, from educational institutes, from students, from communities, from families, and everybody else. But you and I can actually start making a difference from today. We need to start having conversations about unpaid labor. Observe it in your own homes, in your own offices, in your own colleges. Support equal caregiving rights and practices, whether it's maternity leave, it's feeding the baby, taking care of the babies, or anything else in between. And advocating for data collection around unpaid labor, because what gets measured gets valued. So one day, when my daughter, who made the little coin, when she grows up, the unpaid labor is not a burden she needs to carry because of her gender, but will be carried by everybody because all work will have value attached to it. Where motherhood will not be seen as a penalty, but will be seen as a perk, where the generalist abilities that the mothers and parents collect over the years, like multitasking, conflict resolution, negotiation skills, time management are seen as gifts by companies and not ignored. Where families are not afraid to have more kids because it's not a burden on their wallets and bank accounts, but it's an enriching experience, both literally and figuratively. And where kids are not just born, but they're raised by communities, and we give them the future that they so deserve. So I guess it's time we revisit the question, who runs the world? Because I believe we do. We all do. Regardless of our gender, our age, our ethnicity, our abilities or disabilities. Because if we want to solve 100% of the problems of our population, of the humanity, we need 100% of the people to contribute. Thank you.